I'm Forrest Griffin.
Brian Caraway.
And Misha Tate.
What's up, guys? This is Joseph Benavidez, UFC flyweight.
Hi, this is Greg Jackson, and you're listening to It's MMAzing, and that is an amazing pun.
Get it? Like MMA, but amazing? Amazing.
Radio.
Welcome to It's MMAzing Radio. I am your host, Dr. Law. Before I introduce the boys, I want to say I appreciate Misha Tate coming back out of retirement. Our podcast intro was getting real stale. We had a lot of people we know. What's Caraway up to? We don't know. Forrest Griffin been retired since we recorded the fucking thing. Greg Jackson? I don't know. But
we actually do know what Brian Caraway is up to. Committing crime.
That's true. It was like a lawnmower or something he stole. Was it? Some shit like jet ski.
ATV. I don't think it was a lawnmower.
It was a jet ski. It was ATV or jet ski? Okay. Misha Tate ensuring that we have another active fighter on the intro of the podcast.
True.
You heard them already, but with me as always, DJ Mark.
What's up?
Also with me, Kid Presentable.
Now you got me thinking about like the last time we actually met fighters in a like public situation and talked to people. Didn't we get like half of them from Life is Beautiful in Las Vegas? I feel like that's where we met a good chunk of them.
Many of them came from Mark just walking at the EA UFC event, right?
That's true. That was half. That was like half and half.
Yeah, it's pretty much the two times we met people. And also joining us this week, Lavender Gooms.
Hello, guys.
Boys and girls, we got a lot to talk about this week. Just fight announcements up to wazoo, and we've reached a point of with COVID where I'm like, hey, these might actually happen. Allowed myself to get a little excited. We're going to talk about one championship, actually, something this podcast doesn't do normally, which in our defense, shit's on at real unfortunate times for us. But you put it on after a wrestling program that Mike and I watch every week, gives us some hope that we're actually going to watch it. We're going to talk about Bellator. Yes, folks, Bellator. April Fool's past. Well, you're serious. We're talking Bellator's light heavyweight tournament, where a man fighting doing some of his best work right now, Ryan Bader, is facing old man Machida. Are any of us brave enough to say he will jump into another punch again? Finally, we lost Darren Till this week to a broken fucking collarbone. Stepping in on no notice, Kevin Holland. Trying to redeem himself to take on Marvin Vettori, a tall task. We're talking about that also. Leading it off, though, Dustin Poirier has signed the contract to fight Conor McGregor in July at UFC 264. While Conor has not signed the contract, Conor normally doesn't sign contracts until the week of the fight anyway. He had already agreed in principle, so it was all a matter of Mr. Poirier getting his money. He notably turned down a title shot and said he wanted McGregor instead, recognizing that he is the uncrowned lightweight champion and also money. Marcus, this is a fight none of us have asked for, but you know what? I bet it's entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I mean, the writing's been on the wall for a while, and once they announced the title fight, it became even more obvious that, Dustin was probably going to fight Conor, because he's obviously head honcho right now. He deserves a title shot, unless we talked about it many times, unless he wanted to rematch the trilogy for Conor McGregor. Like you mentioned, will bank him a lot more money. The belt obviously is probably secondary to him at this point off of, I'm pretty sure he's confident he's going to be able to beat Conor again and then fight for the belt. So he'll be able to get his big payday and then the accolades and the legacy that, he so rightfully deserves a shot at. So yeah, it wasn't surprising, but I was going to say it's nice, but of all the fights you could have put Conor in, I don't feel confident in this one. I feel like a fresh opponent would have been more exciting for me. But obviously, Conor has something to prove, right? He came back, and that was a big loss for him. So for him to to try to turn it back and to get that back means a lot to him. But I don't know, that last fight was super convincing. So it's an uphill battle for him for sure. Yeah,
and I know we've kind of treat Conor now. We're like, we don't know he doesn't fight that often. So quite frankly, twice in 6 months is nice.
Yeah, that's true.
But we want he's at the point where we want fresh matchups for him. But guess it's better than having him fight Khabib again. Steph, you got any thoughts on this right now? Mike, either of you, do you want to chime in on this or?
Sure. I think it's one of those. The timing of it's a little awkward. I'd like to see a little maybe Connor specifically come in with a little bit momentum on his end to just run it right back. But I will say it's at least interesting was the initial rematch. Everyone kind of was on Connor's side.
Mhm.
Like, I'd love to see Dustin's made a lot of improvements. You know, he's really come a long way. But man, that first fight was so bad. I can't see him winning, you know. But then Dustin completely rewrote it, and now it's the other way. Like, Connor, he might be done. He might be a little washed. He might be past his prime. So I at least find that aspect of it interesting of how completely the narrative has flipped. So can Connor kind of reset it a little bit, or will it be what it is? So there's more curiosity versus an upcoming rematch that none of us really want, i.e. Kamaru versus Masvidal, for example. I would say there's at least some level of intrigue with this one.
Yeah, Mike, you gotta, be happy the man's getting paid, I guess. And he probably gets a title shot if he wins this anyway.
I'm always happy when someone gets paid. Dustin, he takes his fight, he can buy himself some UFC belts, all right? He wants belts, he can buy
he was the
himself
champion, kind of. I mean, he was the, what is it called,
That
champion?
doesn't count.
Good point, though, Mike. Those replica belts are expensive.
They are not cheap. That is true. They are not cheap.
And also, if there's an I before your C, that means you don't count.
I was hoping that
I'll
was
be
going to
happy.
rhyme when he started saying that. I'll be honest. I thought there was a rhyme coming.
Halfway through the sentence, I thought, do I got one in me? No, I don't got one in me. I'm from the streets, don't mean I can rap. I'm happy for this fight. I would like to see Connor win, mainly not because I think Connor's a particularly great guy or great man, but I want to see him still be interesting, and the only way you're interesting is if you actually win some fights. And having him lose 2 in a row to Dustin Poirier kind of extinguishes all of that.
I think Connor's reached a level of fame, Mike, where if he wants to keep fighting, there's going to be a certain level of intrigue no matter who he fights. There's certain fights you can just write down for Connor that will be there no matter what. I mean, he kind of ends up in the Nate Diaz territory of like any fight makes sense at any time if he loses this one. For example, what we're going to talk about in a second here with Nate, fighting a number one contender bout, let's be honest, at 170 pounds, that's what that is, given who's fighting in the title match. So I don't think there's as much pressure on Connor as it would be I don't know. I guess a less famous fighter, if that makes sense.
I don't know. I kind of agree with Mike, though. Like, if he loses 2 in a row, because people, and I don't agree with it, with the rhetoric, but people are already saying, like, oh, he's shot. Like Stefan was saying before, like, oh, he's shot. He doesn't have it anymore. He's, a shadow of his former self. And I don't think that's true. But if he loses to Dustin twice, like, I think to a degree, you're right, Bob. Like, he fights Nate, that's going to be, I think he still has drawing power, but, like, it gets diminished the more he loses. And the more that there seems like there's guys out there that are just better than him. And that's why, like, Khabib leaving is kind of like a blessing in disguise for him. Because, like, okay, you don't have to deal with that. Because that guy was a matchup that seemed insurmountable for him. Dustin seems like a winnable fight for him because it's a
hell, he won the
fight,
first round when they fought.
True, but, like, if he loses another stand-up fight, now it's like, okay, his Achilles heel isn't just like, okay, Khabib's like the best grappler of all time. Yeah, that's an Achilles heel. But now it's like, now there's like good strikers that are beating him, and that kind of really, takes some shine off. So I don't know. I agree with what everyone's saying to certain degrees. Like, I think Connor wins. He needs that shine because he's a big star, and he keeps losing fights. It's not going to shine as bright, and that's why I agree with Steph too. Like, I would have liked to see him fight a lesser opponent. He gets a win, and he changes a little bit of the narrative. Because right now the narrative is like he's shot. He's not the same guy he was before. But, he goes and fights. I'm trying to think of some schlub he could fight.
Lightweight is tough to fight a schlub entirely.
Lightweight is tough. He fights Al Aquinta, which isn't a good matchup because he's a wrestler or something. But, like,
that would have been fun to watch. Al's a bad enough motherfucker that Al will try to stand with him too.
Would stand with him
ego,
too. Yeah. But, like, for him to get a win, just it builds the narrative. Like, okay, he's not shot. He still has it. He smoked this guy or whatever.
You know what I hate about this fucking it's nice that there are more people are watching this sport, and in theory people will get paid, though Jesus Christ, the Venom deal doesn't suggest it. In theory, paychecks will go up with this ESPN stuff and more people watching and stuff, but the casual fan giving us the always of like, anytime a motherfucker loses is because he sucks.
Yeah.
I know MMA always has that, but like, there's just more people now. And that part's unfortunate, but
I agree. It's slightly different with a Connor or a to a much lesser extent because it's pretty fresh, but Israel Adesanya, and look at Kevin Holland. They make a persona off of being invincible, of being touched. So it's one of the more shit you talk, the greater your fall.
That's true.
So he asked for it in a way, It'd be unfair with certain guys like Curtis Blades, for example, because he's not out here like rattling a bunch of cages. But when you want to compare yourself to Ali, when you want to constantly tell everyone I am the greatest, then you got to back it up with results.
That's fair.
It can't be that one of your greatest lines is "I'll change your bum life." Baby, we did it. It's red panty night. It can't be those are your most famous lines, and you're losing.
In fairness, you get those things just from fighting him. You don't have to even win. It's red panty night just from fighting him. Yeah, it sounds like the lightweight division's kind of getting cleared up a little bit. We got Oliveira and Michael Chandler fighting for the inner lightweight strap. Winners, honestly, Dustin Poirier wins. I imagine Dustin Poirier fights the winner. Conor winning, interesting. Honestly, it depends what he wants if he wins this fight. If he wants a title shot, they'll give him a title shot in any weight class, in any sport, probably. It sounds like Justin Gaethje's left out in the cold here a bit. Not a bit entirely. That would have been fun for Conor, quite frankly. I would have liked to seen that too.
That would have been great.
Yeah,
that would have been great.
Gaethje, it would have been dangerous
for him to win.
Yeah, but Gaethje would have just fucking walked him down too. It would have been great to watch.
True, but he would have done the Eddie Alvarez. He would have walked into all those.
Oh my god, it
punches.
would have been awesome. We also got Beneil Dariush taking on Tony Ferguson. That was booked as well, which I like that fight for Tony and Beneil, quite frankly. But if Tony loses to Beneil Dariush, not that I don't think Beneil's a good fighter, but we're talking back end of the top 10, maybe.
Yeah, it's looking rough.
It's not looking good. I did like Tony.
What's Khabib's guy's name?
Makachev.
Islam. Yeah.
I mean, I think he was calling out Gaethje to be the same thing. Like, you don't really have anything to do. I don't have anything to do. Why don't we fight each other? So that's interesting if it happens.
Steph, just a heads up, your camera is frozen for me. Which, if you can swing coming,
it might come back. Yours was frozen for a sec too.
Yeah, I'll see what happens.
So we might be good.
So I did it made me laugh. There was an interview with Drew Dober, who just got Makachev'd a few weeks ago. And he says he went back to the gym. He trains with Gaethje, right? And he says he walked into the gym and he was talking to Gaethje. He just looked over at Gaethje. And Gaethje was just like, right? Because Gaethje had gotten Nurmagomedov. They'd both been Dagestaned recently. And Gaethje just looked at him like, right? Like, that shit's tough. Trying to beat these guys. Tony Ferguson fighting Beneil and Justin Gaethje left out in the cold, who's getting called out by Rafael Dos Anjos, which I would take that fight just because it's never bad to beat Rafael Dos Anjos.
Yeah, he's always up there. So
Rafael's always up there, no matter what. Another fight that was booked, we mentioned Nate Diaz, literally making our podcast irrelevant about a half a day after it gets posted. Nate Diaz is fighting Leon Edwards at 170 pounds in the co-main event of that Chandler Oliveira card, because they need people to buy this thing. And it's a 5-round co-main event, which apparently is nothing ever stopping the UFC from doing this.
Apparently not.
Never was, apparently. They could have done whatever they wanted. My favorite meme I saw was, the Nate Diaz, I'm not surprised, motherfucker. The reaction of, I'm actually quite surprised. I'm actually quite surprised about this, motherfucker. I didn't see that shit coming. Leon Edwards fighting Nate Diaz? Didn't see that coming at all. I've noticed that the online community, especially Reddit MMA, really doesn't like Nate. Talk about how excited they are to watch Leon whoop his ass, which might happen, quite frankly.
Wait a second. Why do we hate Nate now? What's going on here?
Reddit, they don't need a reason. But Leon's excellent, honestly, all around. But weirder shit's happened. Steph, you can kind of read the UFC matchmaking play out in your head where you're like, okay, number one contender Leon Edwards is fighting Nate Diaz. On the other side of it, you have Jorge Masvidal fighting Kamaru Usman in an unnecessary fight. You can kind of see the outcome they're hoping for. Extremely unlikely, though, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think from our standpoint, contender Nate Diaz isn't really what we see his remaining career arc as. It's like why they create the BMF title, right? Is showcase big money, interesting fights. It's kind of what we foresee as the future of Conor, right? Where it's like not necessarily about chasing titles. It's about chasing big, exciting, bankable matchups. But based on who Kamaru called out for his title reign, where like, oh, you're calling out Masvidal because you think Masvidal's got some cachet that's going to be a big draw, like instead of like the credible contender. It's like, Usman, he wants to fight a Diaz brother, right? So it 100% is a way to shoehorn Nate past the line if he should win. But at a certain point, if Edwards just wins, as I think most of us will probably pick in this scenario, then he's just that guy. Well, it was inevitable, right? The guy basically had 8 wins in a row or something at that point.
Yeah, Leon don't lose. He may get a no contest.
He might cheat.
He ain't losing. I mean,
that's the chaos I'm kind of hoping for, is some type of fluky DQ finish, and Leon Edwards just remains in a holding pattern.
You know what, man? They can both lose. Both Usman, both Jorge and Nate. Mark, they can just book them after that if they want.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying before, this is kind of a surprise matchup because I would not have booked Leon Edwards against Nate because I just don't think those two necessary. I mean, Nate sells. Leon, I think it still hasn't been proven. I
guarantee. You know what, man? I bet Usman and Burns didn't sell shit, and they're staring down the prospect of Edwards versus Usman, and they're like, worst case scenario, people will buy this pay-per-view and watch Leon Edwards whoop Nate Diaz's ass.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it was not a matchup I was thinking of because I don't think it's a great matchup for Nate. I think like a Wonder Boy would be kind of fun. Luque would be interesting.
Poor Luque.
Yeah, I think he's always been
for so long.
But yeah, so I mean, but it is what it is, and it is a 5-round fight, which is it. It seems weird that this is the one that like I don't know why this fight needs to be 5 rounds necessarily, but I have a hard time
because Nate said he wants 5 rounds. Probably,
I guess that's it, right? And I have a hard time seeing Nate as that contender. He hasn't really earned that spot. Like if he beats Leon, that is kind of enough cachet because Leon is so clearly a number 1 contender, even though his last fight was very controversial. But it's just like Nate has. I mean, and I love the guy. We all love the guy. Like he is a fun fighter. When he is on, it is a show to watch. He's great on the mic. But like, and this is such a stupid case to argue because merit means nothing anymore in the UFC. But to me, he just doesn't have the merit to earn that title
2
shot.
years, and he lost in this weight class.
Yeah, I mean, Jorge pieced him up, and that was a fight that I think a lot of us kind of saw that coming too, just stylistically. That wasn't.
Yeah, we didn't really dig the New York doctor being real shitty and stopping the fight early, but besides that, it wasn't going well. It was not going well. It wasn't like we were like, oh, Nate's about to get
hey, I'm all for it for Nate to shock me and get
what? At this point, I just happy Nate's fighting. Right, that's it. Where we're at.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest takeaways. Like, I'm just glad he's getting back in there, and
I'm giving up.
This fight. Yeah, hopefully it's like a 3-month turnaround for his next fight and not 2 years.
Yeah, Mike, you were going to chime in.
Is he the main event of this fight?
I mean, no, but really, yes. Let's be honest. The main event, I mean, is Charles Oliveira and Chandler, which in fairness is a banger. And God, I hope Oliveira wins. I want the UFC to have to figure that situation out. Give me Charles Oliveira, who still makes no effort to speak English. None. And he's just out there doing charity? Let's give me him and Dustin, all right? The charity matchup after this.
Yeah, that'd be good. He doesn't speak any English, but he has the Bronx in his name. It's
making no effort. It's Do Bronx, which I think just means do means from or of the or something in Portuguese.
Yo, exactly. He's from the BX.
That's
BX
right.
all day. He's from English.
No, he's not.
No, I didn't think so. He's Brazilian through and through.
I like that he when he comes out, he had that big camera on. He looks like he's a tourist. I'm a big fan of Charles Oliveira at this point.
He's a good guy.
All right, a couple other fights we want to announce. So Wonderboy and Gilbert Burns is happening. It's co-main event to Dustin and Connor at the moment. I mean, let's be honest, nobody else gets paid when they got to pay Connor and somebody else on a pay-per-view, so we probably won't see another guy on there. So I don't entirely like the matchup just because I would rather, if Wonderboy's fighting somebody else and he might lose to them, that guy be a title contender who hasn't just fought. That being said, Nate Diaz is fighting Edwards, Steph, so fuck it. Whatever. I mean, we're just putting him out there.
Like I said, I was just talking about a guy they do want to shoehorn a title shot to. Here's a guy they don't want to give one. If Wonderboy loses, he's out of the picture. If he wins, he doesn't get the title shot. They don't. I don't know what Stephen Thompson's family did to the UFC brass, but they don't really want him in the picture.
Yeah. So Alex Volkanovski got COVID, and it was bad. I was reading some of the stuff he was going through, like hacking up a lot of blood, couldn't breathe. This guy's a supreme athlete, and this happened to him, by the way. And they were supposed to fight on the Ngannou and Stipe card. Instead, they are doing the Return of the Ultimate Fighter on ESPN Plus. So
I almost got to assume that's so that Volkanovski could have even more time to.
I mean, I imagine that's part of it. And now that I say it, now I think about it, it's just we went from that fight happening a week ago to not happening for 6 months. I don't know where we're at with featherweight contenders either, because Max keeps beating everybody up. There's that too.
More importantly, do we really need the Ultimate Fighter?
No, that's the big.
The conversation Mark and I were having. Steph, your camera froze. Sorry, but I see you unmuted. You want to say something?
I was just gonna say, when it comes to tough, like there's basically no combination of fighters you can announce that gives me any interest in the show whatsoever, except for one. And this is a preview of next week's episode, and that would be Rival Brothers, Jake and Logan Paul coaching MMA against each other.
By the way, Logan Paul was on SmackDown and handled himself well enough that I was like, this kid is not the worst actor I've ever seen in my life. Mike, Mark and I were talking about this earlier today, where I thought if this thing was going to be, if the Ultimate Fighter was going to be on ESPN, proper ESPN, which wasn't going to happen, but even like ESPN 2, where it's still the second most expensive cable channel in the world, or in the US, sorry. I'm like, okay, maybe you put like John Jones and Francis on there just because like they're not going to fight for 6 months anyway. And then you actually get some promotional machine behind this thing to be like, oh, on Tough this week, we got Francis and John staring at each other again. That bullshit, the Tough bullshit. Where like if it was going to be on the network, it would make sense to me. This is not going to be on the network. This is on ESPN Plus. So
actually respectfully, I think you have it backwards, Bobby. I think it's a good thing that it's on ESPN Plus because that's just the way things are going now. Obviously, terrestrial, TV is still important on some level, but everything is going to streaming now. You have Paramount Plus, you have Peacock, you got the OGs, you got Hulu, you got YouTube TV. ESPN Plus is actually a huge part of ESPN's future going forward. So the fact that they're putting Tough on ESPN Plus, I think is actually a sign of things to come and is actually a good thing.
So do we need Tough though? You're the one who asked the question. Like this is what we're getting.
No, we don't need Tough. Tough, I don't see the point of it. We have Dana White's Contender Series for a reason. I really don't need the episodic bullshit of Tough anymore in my life. But if you're going to have it anywhere, I agree with having it on.
Yeah, I mean, Tough also, people who are newer MMA fans got to know, Tough when it came out, it was a big deal to get fights on, once a week you get a fight on TV. That was a big deal. Now there are so many fucking fights on TV, we're all losing our goddamn minds. And the talent pool isn't out there anymore. I mean, the first season of Tough gave you half the UFC roster for a while there. You got 6 title contenders out of the first season of Tough, more than 6 probably, honestly.
It also, after years of watching it and it running, you also kind of realize it creates an unnatural circumstance for the fighters anyways. Absolutely. Where realistically, everyone on the show is fighting outside of their proper weight class because they're forced to live in this house where they're restricted access to the outside world. So they have to stay in a certain weight range to, have these exhibition fights every so-and-so weeks. And so it's it doesn't even give you a good gauge as to what they'll actually be coming out of the show. So it's just more useless the more you've had time to break it down.
That's why when they tell you whatever weight class it is for Tough, you're like, okay, well, these guys are all the weight class below this. You got to mentally assume that. I remember Tony won Tough at welterweight. Bisping at light heavyweight, Rashad at heavyweight. We're going far back here, but they're just, you can't maintain that. You can't cut that much on that short of notice. And it's also, it's COVID. How are they going to do this? We're all going to live in a house together? Is this necessary? Really?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I mean, with COVID, that actually makes sense, right? I mean,
That's
just
the
have them
bubble?
all have them all isolated together. If anything, I think that's how it normally is.
Are the cameramen leaving at the house too? Because they got a life to live. That's what I'm saying. The cameramen gonna live at the house.
Put on some masks. Yeah.
Wasn't there that one tough where the guy tried to fuck one of the camera women? Wasn't that a thing? Or like there was like
I don't remember that.
That was a thing, man. I'm telling you, that was one of the seasons. It's like 2 or 3. Also, you find out stuff about some of these fighters coaching that you're just like, God, this guy's a fucking idiot. You know.
I did just want to say I thought Mike brought up an interesting point about maybe Plus being a better fit, but I do wonder how it's going to do on ESPN Plus because, and again, I don't really know the fan base that's using Plus on like a daily, because like for me, and I imagine you guys too, like I go to ESPN Plus because I know there's a fight on there and I'm just looking for that. Like it's not a thing where I'm going to peruse random what's going to be on there, because mostly it's just they just re-air sports, right? They don't really have original content.
Well, the thing that's on there that
I'm aware of.
I've gone after watching like
30
for 30 and that detail show with Cormier is really good.
That's true.
But
I mean,
like
maybe it does have a
but
better
honestly
reach
it's
than I
like
think.
there's so much content out there. I'm not chasing shit down that's like not in my immediate
I just
thought
wonder
right now.
how well, and it's
we'd have to know
another
the
thing
numbers
where-
I guess of how well it's doing to see.
Yeah, I would like to know the numbers, and I don't. My finger's not on the pulse of like, does reality TV show still draw like it used to?
Honestly, like
I don't know. I think it does to some degree, but it also seems really played out too. But I'm not.
well, Mike,
Well,
enlighten.
well, guys,
Should they hand out roses?
we don't. It's a good thing you mentioned roses because I was gonna say a quarter of the year I am half distracted on this podcast because I will have The Bachelor on or The Bachelor.
yeah, but that's on TV though,
in the
man.
background.
That's on terrestrial TV.
That is reality TV,
But it's on
exactly.
but it's on TV.
Beautiful.
It's on regular TV. It's not streaming.
All right, but he's just talking about reality
Well,
TV.
I'm just saying
People
we
can
don't
watch.
exactly have the most compelling people on. Look, Brian Ortega's a real pretty man. Okay, he's a very pretty man. I saw him walking around the fucking casino in Caesar's Palace, and for a moment,
Not with that shaved head,
Yeah,
Bobby.
he took-
Not with that
that's
shaved
true.
head. If he's coming out with that clean
the
shaved
Pantene
head,
Pro
I
V.
don't know about
That's true. The Pantene Pro V. Brian Ortega was walking around the Caesar's Palace, took my breath away for a moment. I mean, Volkanovski. Look, the most interesting thing about Volkanovski is he used to be 260 pounds. Like
That's true. He was a very fat man.
you got to show that picture all you want.
I do just wonder, maybe the show would be more appealing to the masses if all the fighters were kissing up on Dana White and going out on dates. And maybe they're making love on a couple episodes. Maybe that is the arc we need to embrace on this show to get the fans in. I know I'd be more interested. People going on dates with Dana White, take him to the beach and kissing up on him and meeting his family in the last episode.
The ultimate fucker.
If there isn't a porno version of The Ultimate Fighter called The Ultimate Fucker, come on, porn, help us out. There's got to exist.
Make some calls, Bobby.
It's definitely,
I don't
a gay
frequent
porn, right? Come on.
I haven't frequented the gay porn sites, but I would not be shocked. But if it isn't out there, it should be.
Let's get past this discussion and get into talking about other stuff. But real quickly, Korean Zombie, Dan Ige, 5-round main event.
Nice.
That just sounds like some violence. I mean,
I want to see the zombie back.
yeah, we get to see the zombie. Any zombie fight's
It's
a
a
good zombie
good
fight.
test if Zombie still has it.
Yeah.
Who did Zombie get murked by? Ortega?
Wasn't it Ortega?
Ortega
I think that was
beat his
last
ass,
one.
right? Yeah.
It was rough.
That was Ortega's best stand-up fight.
Yeah. Okay. So we got one championship on TNT happening this Wednesday. Every week of April, we have this going on. So the first one is Mighty Mouse Johnson taking on their champion, Adriano Moraes, happening at the Singapore Indoor Stadium in Singapore. Next week, we got Christian Lee fighting their lightweight champion. Week after that, we got Lineker on the card. We got Nikki Holtzkin against John Wayne Parr in Muay Thai.
Oh, God.
How old is John Wayne Parr?
John Wayne Parr is old as
I would-
dirt,
was
man.
Nick-
He's-
Nikki-
John
was
Wayne
he-
Parr still out here doing the thing?
Nikki, was
Doing
Nikki
it.
your guy, Steph? I remember you used to watch Glory a little bit. Was
He
Nikki
was,
your guy?
yeah.
Yeah, I like Nikki. Nikki was the champion for as long as that lasted at whatever that weight class was,
Yeah.
approximately welterweightish.
And then we got
Glory.
Shinya Aoki the week after that against Sage Northcutt, and
That's
Edward
Oddly appealing.
Edward Folayang versus Yoshihiro.
You could have said any word right there.
He's good. He was their champion, wasn't he? Poirier was their champion. Yeah, he was their champion before. And he's taking on Yoshihiro Akiyama on there. We got some stuff happening.
Mark Poirier used to do what is that sand show that Kung Lee used to do with all the rolling?
Okay.
Poirier used to do that.
I love that because every time I saw Kung Lee do it, obviously the other guy had only done kickboxing. He's like, well, you just scissor kick, take me down. I know this. You can do this shit in this. He's doing double legs and shit. Doesn't know what was going on.
So what we got that's interesting here is we have this is coming on at 10 p.m. Eastern time / Pacific time, right after All Elite Wrestling Dynamite on TNT, which is in terms of live content, the only better position on TNT, which would actually be a much better position, I think. I don't know ratings. Would have been after NBA Tuesday or Thursday. Though those are double headers and they go on at like 1 a.m. by the time it's over, so that wasn't going to happen. Mike, this is a big deal for one championship in the United States, isn't it?
Yeah. One champion, to my knowledge, has never actually had a TV home before. It's always been something you've had to catch on like a random channel that like maybe your cable subscriber has, or catch it on the internet. Yeah, I think
we heard like BR Live. I remember we heard this was going to be a thing maybe when they first got on BR Live, because I think BR is owned by, BR Live is owned by, or Bleacher Report in general is owned by Time Warner. So this is their first time on United States television, and the second or the third biggest cable network, actually, after ESPN2.
And it's going to be a huge lead-in for them. AEW normally on Wednesday, they average maybe about 800,000 viewers per week. So if they could keep half of that audience, I think that would be a huge win for one.
Yeah, and the AEW does really well is it's always near the top in the coveted 18 to 30 to 49 demographic. Which is the people advertisers think spend money. Mark, you put your best foot forward, I guess. You spent all your money bringing the arguably at the time top 2 or 3 pound for pound fighter in the world in Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. He won that tournament of theirs 2 years ago to get a title shot, and here we are, to him taking on their flyweight champion.
Yeah, I mean, over the last couple years, we've kind of been wondering like, why are they spending so much money getting this talent, this American-based talent over to one when the American audience could not really consume their product? You know, like what's the point of getting Eddie and DJ and all these guys, Sage Northcutt over there? And why do they have Misha Tate and Rich Franklin? Why do they have so many connections with, you know, American MMA fighters? And it's very difficult for us to watch those events. This is why they were building up to this. They obviously had a plan. They wanted, if not this exact scenario, something very similar to it to kind of make a big splash. It remains to be seen if it's really going to resonate, right? I do feel what's going to be their biggest hurdle is the UFC and just how much content the UFC puts out. It is going to be these wrestling fans at the end of, and how long is the AEW show?
AEW is 2 hours. They tend to skew. Okay. I mean, not adult, more of an adult wrestling fan in general. You kind of feel for them this week because if this is a week you don't want to be after AEW, it is WrestleMania week when NXT, their competition, is running essentially a pay-per-view the same night. So I wonder how well it's really going to do this week, Mike, just with what's happening with the Stand and Deliver show and stuff. But you got to go for it, man. They got the entire month of April to convince people to watch one championship, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, they're doing the best they can with what they got. I honestly don't know if it's gonna be enough. I would almost, and this could be a completely wrong marketing strategy, just like put all your eggs in one basket. Just have like one big event. But then it's like, you know, they're doing a whole weekly thing. I don't know. It's tough because like, is DJ by himself? And do we know how long their show is? Is their show going to be 2 hours long? I think
it's only 3 fights. So I hope
it's an hour.
I think it's an hour.
I hope it's
well, here's the thing. They can edit it.
Clean hour.
They can edit this thing
I hope it's a clean hour where it's just like, just get us fights. Like you do have to do a little promotion because a lot of people aren't going to know who the fuck any of these guys are.
Not at all.
So you do have to have a little package to lead people in to try to get you interested in the fights. But I feel like it needs to be action packed and it needs to be short because you're going to be getting guys that are like, okay, I really like AEW. That was a fun show. Okay, there's this MMA thing on. Maybe I'll try it out. And, you know, that first fight is, and good thing, the tape delay could be, you know, a blessing in disguise. Put a banger out there, you know, because you gotta catch
it looks like we're gonna get
stick on.
There's gonna be a Muay Thai fight.
And those are fun. And that's what people, I mean, I like how they do kickboxing because I think it's what most the casual MMA fans will want.
Yeah.
It's just like an MMA fight where they don't grapple.
Exactly.
They just kickbox. And it's brutal. They have really good kickboxing matches. So hopefully that does.
I mean,
bring the fans.
whatever gets a better ending, honestly, Steph, between that fight and the Eddie Alvarez fight should be what they air first. If they get whatever's the more exciting fight, you got to just put what you got forward, right, man, and hope for the best.
Look, I'm not hopeful for them. There's not enough room for a second MMA organization, let alone a third. If they can develop a cult following, that is great for them. I have no hopes in this picking up any level of traction.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, this is one where I forgot the name of the guy who runs the place, but they just lie about their numbers. They have some nonsense about how many 100 million people watch their program, which they have no numbers. They're not true. They can't back it up. We'll see, though, man. I mean, I'm going to try to watch it. I mean, I'll be honest, if I hear the result of the Demetrius Johnson fight, and if it just says Demetrius Johnson, unanimous decision, I'm probably not going to watch that. You tell me Demetrius Johnson got a finish, I'll be like, okay, what could I mean? By the way, the betting line in this, Stefan, what was it earlier today, before the podcast when we looked? It was 9 something, right?
I think it was like minus 950. It's close to 1,000.
It is moved. It is now minus 1050. More money is coming in on Demetrius Johnson. So
I know it pays peanuts on the dollar, but I want them peanuts.
Honestly, Demetrius Johnson is just like a pretty good. It's a good savings account right now, guys. It's paying 10%. Okay, it's 10% quickly on that. So we'll see, man. It's one championship. We were gonna pick the DJ fight before the podcast started, and Stefan made a good point of like why he's a 10-1 favorite. So we're not trying to goose our numbers too much this week. And folks,
I was actually going to take a loss. If we were picking that fight, I'd be like, what's the fun in all of us picking a massive favorite? I may as well just you give me 2 points when Adrian Moraes, as Mike said, which Moraes is that? And we answered, you don't know which Moraes that is.
None of the ones you know. It's none of the ones you know. Bellator's back this week. Second show on Showtime, again, at the Mohegan Sun in Uncasville, which Mike refuses to go to Bellator in Uncasville, no matter what I offer to make happen for him, man. Not happening.
Sounds like a rare form of foot fungus. Uncasville.
True.
Uncasville. Coming off of a week where their best fighter fought, quite frankly, Patricio Pitbull, their dual champion at featherweight and lightweight, rematched his toughest contender probably in Emmanuel Sanchez. Not sure if anybody else saw this, where they spent 3 minutes feeling each other out. Then, I don't know what Sanchez was going for, some sort of kick, it looked like. And then he got hit, he got dropped, he got guillotined. And then Patricio told the referee he is sleeping. And then the referee took his time to be like, oh, he is sleeping.
Oh, the referee was like, "Oh, he's sleeping. Let me give him a second to be comfortable."
And then Pitbull got up and said, "He is sleeping." And we're like, "Thanks, Pitbull." Really setting up a matchup I'm actually excited for in Antonio and AJ McKee. I keep wanting to call him Antonio. He's Antonio McKee's son, though. AJ McKee, bit of a goddamn super prospect here, making it to the tournament final. Patricio defending that title a couple times just to get to this tournament final. When they have that fight happen, it'd be nice if they had some people around to watch their best fighter fight, quite frankly.
Sure. Yeah.
This week, though, the start of that light heavyweight Grand Prix, Ryan Bader, Lyoto Machida, they fought, I want to say it's been at least 5 years since the first time they fought, where Ryan Bader went with the classic Ryan Bader move of eyes closed, jumping into a man's fist. 9 years ago, they fought. It does not feel like 9 years ago, guys. In those 9 years, man, Lyoto got a little old. Straight up. Ryan Bader kind of reached his final form. I say peak Ryan Bader was probably, Steph, you want to say a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
Whenever he won that heavyweight tournament.
Yeah, when he won the heavyweight tournament, while taking no damage at all, basically. He somehow took 6 punches in the heavyweight tournament, I think. Beat up Matt Mitrione, beat up Fedor, beat up some other guy, forgot who. Then he fought Fedor's prodigy. And Nemkov came in there. I think that's his name, right?
Sounds right.
God, I feel bad. He's so good, too. This is what happens when guys don't fight that often. Yeah, Nemkov. Vadim Nemkov got revenge for his master and whooped Ryan Bader's ass like he stole something. Ryan Bader, Lyoto Machida. The betting line, Steph, let's be honest, it would be worse if we all didn't see a man jump into the other guy's fist with his eyes closed once. We know it'd be worse. What is it?
Yeah. I mean, we like to remember the history, but it was so long ago. I simply think Machida doesn't have the reflex speed to pull that off, even if Bader does jump in eyes closed again. So, are we making the picks?
Yeah, man, give the betting line and make your pick, sir.
Yeah, Bader's coming in at -300 to Lyoto's +250. That's fair. I think it's Bader. It's just Bader by viable prospect.
Yeah. Bader's coming before that loss to Nemkov, Bellator. I mean, Bader was unbeaten in 8 fights. One of those was a no contest where Chuck Congo lied about getting eye poked. Because I didn't see no eye poke. Let's check Congo. Weird shit happens. Machida's coming off of 2 split decision losses to Phil Davis and Gegard Mousasi. I remember watching the Mousasi one thinking Mousasi should not have let him hung around, should not have let this be this close. I remember thinking Mousasi's way better than him. So I was oddly impressed with how much Machida had left. Didn't watch him fight Phil Davis because that sounds horrible for everybody involved. I got to go with Ryan Bader, man. I'm going to feel like a real dumbass if he gets knocked out again, but man, you got to think Ryan Bader's turned a corner enough not to lose this fight. Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bader as well. You have to assume, considering it hasn't really happened since, that, jumping in and just getting hit by someone, it's like a one-time deal. Maybe at most 2-time deal. So
I mean, it did happen twice. Is that what he did to Tito? Was that what he jumped into Tito's fist too?
That's why as soon as I said one time, it's like, no, wait a second, it happened with Tito as well. Our mayor pro tem. And
I was going to say, Mike, you want to plug that pro Twitter account since Tito came up naturally just now?
Borrachina Depot.
That's right.
Guys, check it out.
Yeah.
That's where you see how big of a dumbass Tito Ortiz is. But I've got Bader in this fight. As you said, it's been 9 years. Machida has for sure gotten much older. He is not the fighter that he used to be. And Bader is further up on that hill of the downslope. So I'm going to go with Bader.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how the brackets line up exactly with this tournament. But we'll see. Marcus, who do you got in this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to pick Machida to make it interesting, but that would be illogical. That would even for me to make it interesting. That's too illogical for me to pick that one. And a lot of that has to do with I didn't even know he fought Phil Davis, or that Machida had moved up to 205 in any recent fight. So I mean, it's kind of good that he's not just jumping up from 185 to 205 for this fight. But I have to imagine that him losing to Phil Davis gives Ryan Bader a lot of confidence because he beat Phil Davis. They kind of have similar styles, they're both wrestlers and stuff. So I'm sure he picked up some stuff from that fight. And also, Bader is kind of accustomed to these Grand Prix. He knows how to win them. He knows how to conserve himself. So I do think he's the logical pick in this matchup at the very least.
Yeah, it's clean sweep. Also on this card, we got Liz Carmouche fighting Vanessa Porto. We got Kat Zingano on there. We got Julia Budd on there. We got Goiti Yamauchi, which I know his name. So I'm trying to remember why, to be honest.
Yeah, he had a bit of a run. He was a good submission guy.
Exactly.
Not a bad card.
Not bad. Next week, this tournament continues. We'll talk about it next week with Nemkov versus Phil Davis 2. Apparently, they fought once before. Probably didn't go well for Phil Davis.
That's what I have to imagine.
Corey Davis. Sorry. Well,
sorry. You go ahead and listen.
Yeah, Corey Anderson taking on Dovletson Yag Shimuradov, which I looked him up about when we first talked about this tournament. Bit of a tough prospect for Corey Anderson in his debut. And then the following week, we get what we all want to fucking see. We get Yoel Romero versus Anthony Rumble Johnson. That's what this tournament's... Scott Coker's not fucking around this time, guys. Remember these old fucking tournaments where we're trying to, in Strikeforce, where we're like, all right, what do we book so we end up with Fedor versus Alistar? And then fucking they both lose. Okay, or Fedor loses to Bigfoot. Now, Scott Coker ain't fucking around. He's like, what do you want to see? Bigfoot? Or you want to see Rumble versus Yoel? First round. We're doing that.
There you go.
Steph, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, while, this field is surprisingly stacked for Bellator and just what we consider their general talent pool to be, but I will say since it has that odd caveat that Nemkov is defending his title within whatever his matchup draws are, I am a little remiss and disappointed that Scott Coker did not take my suggestion of, in honor of us being only a couple weeks away from my second most anticipated movie of the year 2021, and not doing a Mortal Kombat style tournament where everyone just fights Nemkov. Nemkov just has a ladder, and we go through all the light heavyweights over 2 months. And that's the tournament. That's a more fun tournament, in my opinion. But yeah, Mortal Kombat's coming out soon, guys. I'm excited.
You know what? We're sitting here looking at this, and I'm just thinking, man, the light heavyweight fight I want to see is Jan Blachowicz versus Nemkov. That is the matchup
for the best light heavyweight in the universe.
If Nemkov gets to the ladder without taking much damage, he fights Reptile between the 7th and 8th fight.
Phil Davis, nicely played. Phil Davis is the only one he didn't finish in Bellator. Went to a split decision. So we'll see what happens there. All right. UFC next week or this week. I was excited for Darren Till getting beat up by Marvin Vettori. I'd convinced myself Darren Till was going to get beat up. I spent a lot of time being annoyed by Darren Till. I thought it'd be good for everybody to watch him get his ass beat by Marvin Vettori, who seems very angry. Just really angry at all times, Marvin Vettori. I can get behind that, man. You know, some anger. Not just shit talk, just anger. He's upset.
You see what he's angry about today?
What pissed him off today?
That the media will not stop talking about the Paul brothers. It is so disrespectful that they're giving so much shine to the Paul brothers. Who are these nobodies that are headlining?
We're at a real,
he's not wrong.
Yeah, Marvin Vettori's got a real, you know what really grinds my gears, attitude to media these days.
Martin Vettori is spoken like a true person not from this country. And you know what? He has a lot of sense behind him. Why the fuck are we dealing with the Paul brothers? The Paul brother that was on WWE on Friday, that was the one that videotaped some dead dude in Japan. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what it makes me think of? Do you remember Troy Barnes' politically conservative fight rap in Community? Martin Vettori is the bang bong sing along. Your name's Al Gore because your views are wrong. That's how he feels about everyone else. Your views are wrong.
Marvin Vettori. Look, this podcast has made it clear. That's the matchup we want to see from Israel Adesanya. We want to see them run that back. That is the matchup that interests us. A man who took the third round off Izzy Adesanya easily. All right? Marcus kept stepping in for Darren Till is Kevin Holland, which I want to say, we talked about this when I think I said Kevin Holland was my fighter of the year last year. Kevin Holland's ability to stay ready and just lay his nuts out there to fight after every 3-4 weeks. Much respect. And in this case, this is a big risk for a guy who just spent a fight getting grappled. Fighting someone like Marvin who will get on top of you and beat your ass. He'll climb out, he'll take you down, get on top of you, and just start beating your ass. Kevin Holland's talking about how, look, he'll do whatever kind of fight Marvin wants to do. If Marvin wants to talk shit, he'll talk shit. If Marvin wants to be quiet, he'll do that. He says he's gonna still talk, but he'll be serious and all that shit. This is a giant risk for this kid, I think. Even if it's on short notice, people aren't gonna remember that. They're gonna remember that he lost 2 in a row. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, right now it definitely seems like on paper this is, ill-advised. This is not a particularly good matchup. Having just lost to Derek Brunson, who's, a strong wrestler, to fight another guy like Marvin, who's another strong wrestler. It's either that we come back next week and it was like, yeah, that was a foolish decision. He shouldn't have taken such a short notice fight after he just lost to another wrestler. Or the inverse is he fucking turned ship real fast. And we forget about the Derek Brunson fight because he comes in here and if he beats Marvin, that really does a lot to bounce back from that loss. So it's a risky move, it's a ballsy move. I give him all the credit in the world for taking this on basically a week's notice, more or less. A really tough matchup, but if he wins, that's huge because Marvin, I think you and me, Bob, we've been on the Marvin train for a while. We definitely think he has something to prove against Izzy. But if Kevin can come in, he kind of steals some of that thunder. So in some ways too, he lost, what he lost in that last fight, he lost a lot of the momentum. He doesn't have any momentum now. So another loss isn't really, he's kind of already buried a bit. So to take a short notice fight and to lose it again would just be like, well, he took a short notice fight. He put his head on the line. It did turn out for him, but sometimes you got to take those risks. So it's really, I think it's easy to say right now, like, oh, this is a foolish mistake he's making, and he loses this fight. We look like we're not reading the future. We're just reading predictability and what's most likely to happen.
This is on ABC, isn't it? Like, this is on proper ABC, like at noon.
Oh, you're right.
This is like the middle of the day card, isn't it?
That's a big, and that's a big,
By the way,
hey, you're right, and it's at 12 too. Whoa, weird.
Is that the main card? I thought that was the prelims. The main card's at 12.
At least on my Google search here, it says the main card's starting at 12. So this fight's probably going to be what, like?
Well, I'm gonna miss this thing. Okay.
Something.
What, man? This is we talked about it. We talked about it a couple weeks ago how people weren't giving Derek Brunson enough credit for this. Do you know how people will forget entirely that Derek Brunson even beat Kevin Holland? Is if Kevin Holland goes out and wins this fight, Derek Brunson may well have lost that first fight. He'll get no credit at all.
Yeah. Officially though, I'm going to pick Marvin.
Oh yeah.
But hats off to Kevin, and hopefully, I'll gladly take an L on this one if he can come out there and look fantastic, because I think he really needs it. I think he knows that that last performance, stole a lot of momentum. He could gain a lot of that back with a win.
Yeah, I got Marvin Vettori too. No one's ever finished Marvin Vettori before. His losses are to Antonio Carlos Jr., Izzy Adesanya, and two gentlemen without Wikipedia pages, all by decision. Marvin also, been getting a lot of decisions these days, but yeah. Kevin can win in 5 rounds, but I would find it highly unlikely. Stefan? You picked already. I'm sorry.
Steph already won.
Yeah, he did. I apologize.
have not.
Yeah, Mike.
I didn't pick on the site.
I thought you picked when you gave the odds, or was that the other one?
I think I was the first one.
Okay, go ahead, Stefan. Make your pick. We might have gotten confused.
Yeah, I don't think I read the odds either.
Okay, well, there we go. I mixed it up with the last fight. My bad, brother. Give us the odds while you're talking.
For the record,
we're both
the
going
odds
crazy.
are Vettori is a pretty sizable favorite at minus 310 to Kevin Holland's plus 255. I'm going to go the other way on this. I'm going to take Kevin Holland with a big caveat. If he loses, I am going to bury him so far deep into the earth that he is going to come out on the other side of the planet.
You guys stay tuned because Stefan's hosting the show next week. So the first 5-10 minutes of the show might be Stefan burying Kevin Holland.
and if he wins, then I bury Marvin Vettori and I elevate the Paul brothers to godly status.
We're going real sports talk reactionary on this podcast next week, guys. All right.
Look, Stephen A is getting a little older, right? He needs an eventual successor to just say wild shit. That can be me. But that said, it's not for nothing. Holland had his moments against Brunson, right? He still cracked him. He still cracked him with good shots, and he was still there late. He was getting wrestled, but it's not like he got to the end of the match and he was gassed. There was nothing in him that he broke. He gave up. He just had a clear deficiency. Now, the short notice of fight is troubling because there's not enough time to really shore up that deficiency. But that said, I'm not certain that Vettori is a better wrestler than Brunson. I think Vettori is a well-rounded guy. But you mentioned it, Bob. That loss to Carlos Jr., as much as I just like that guy because I like Carlos Jr., the fast food chain, that guy's not that good. He's not that exceptional at anything. So Vettori is not an uber prospect, right? He's not a guy who just set the world on fire. He's a guy who improved over time. So with that caveat, Holland might have the athleticism to make up some of this. Maybe Vettori isn't quite as strong of a grappler, but maybe, like you said, maybe Holland takes it a little bit more seriously this fight because clearly he kind of had a lot of mental lapses in the last one. It is an uphill battle. Like I said, I will bury him so deep into the earth as a prospect if he loses 2 in a row, just because that's the hyperbole I enjoy sometimes. But he's got a shot. So I had I thought there was a chance we might be all one-sided on this. So I'm taking a swing the other direction.
Mike, are we 3-1 on this?
We are not 3-1 on this one. I'm going with Kevin Holland as well. Back when Kevin Holland fought Derek Brunson, we all called him, or at least I called him, a high-level gatekeeper. That could be considered an insult, but I don't think it's an insult. That shows how good Derek Brunson is. Derek Brunson beat Kevin Holland with his wrestling, with his really good wrestling. I don't know if Marvin Vettori has that in his arsenal. we know that's what can cause Kevin Holland some trouble. So without that facet being there in Marvin Vettori's game, I think this is one for Kevin Holland to pick up, get back on the right side of the win column, and he's not going to be as much of an idiot in this fight. There is no way he's going to be as much of an idiot in this fight.
Mark,
I think it's. I love how we're split on this, but I think there's one thing that Steph and Mike didn't key on, which I think could absolutely be a factor. I could see Holland getting into Marvin's head with his shit talking because this guy's so tuned up. He's angry about the Paul brothers. Think about when he's punching Kevin Holland. He's talking about how he has like little soft hands or something. And this dude just gets all emotional because he seems like a very emotional guy. I could actually see the head games working on him. And that could be an interesting factor that we're not really keying in on because no one really, no one buys into it that much, but I could see Marvin getting mad and like overexerting himself and emotionally draining himself because of all the shit talk. But I think that might be the most interesting thing I'm looking forward to in this fight.
Mike,
I can see Kevin Holland taking time out of training to just learn some shit talk in Italian, just to use it in the octagon.
To push some buttons, maybe.
all right, man. The rest of this card's not good. There's a bunch of fights where I know like one person might be interesting. Where I'm like, oh, Jim Miller's on this. Oh, fucking Scott Holtzman's on this. Oh, McDessie's on this. Even then, they're iffy. We're picking one more fight. Nina Ansaroff, Mackenzie Dern. Nina Ansaroff coming off of a loss to Tatiana Suarez 2 years ago. She was supposed to fight... was she supposed to fight somebody? Or is this really her return back to MMA after having a kid? I thought she was supposed to fight somebody.
I don't know.
I thought there was something booked. Could be wrong. Her first fight since becoming a mother. Taking on Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern, the jiu-jitsu legend. 3 straight wins. 2 by submission. Recently, decision victory over Verna Yandroba back in December. The betting line for this one, Steph?
Really close. This will be the closest one we pick. Nina is the slight favorite at minus 130 to Mackenzie's plus 110.
I'll take Nina. The Ansaroff Nunes family keep winning, man. Well, she coming off a loss, but Amanda keep winning. Nina getting on that train too. I don't know, man. This is really tough. I have no idea. I don't think it'll go well for Mackenzie to stay standing. Not that she's gotten better. I just don't think she's as good as Nina standing. So I got Nina. Steph?
I got Nina. I don't believe Mackenzie's gotten better. Mackenzie is incredibly one-dimensional to me. It's quite a talented one dimension. Her takedowns still leave a lot to be desired. She has a strong overhand right that she is unable to set up and unable to not telegraph wildly. Like the power is there, but the boxing acumen isn't. I've never really been sold on Dern as a prospect until she can really elevate some of the other areas of her game to kind of round out. Whereas Nina I think I've been wrong about her so many times, where Nina was just another name, but she just really kept winning a lot. Like you said, coming off of a loss, but she won a lot of fights that I did not give her credit for. And there has to be something to said to your partner being like the greatest fighter in the history of the women's like divisions period, to be your trainer, to be your coach. So when they say steel sharpens steel. So I got Nina.
Mike?
I'm going to go the other way on this one. I'm going to go with Dern. I've been in the Dern camp for as long as she's been in the UFC, even before then. That is an excellent one dimension she has. This shit gets to the ground, fight's over.
Bobby, there is an internet term for why Mike is in the Dern camp, and the response would be bonk, because go to horny jail, Mike.
I thought you were going to say Mike is simping.
Those all work.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Mike only simps.
The bonk took me a while.
Mike simps for Maki Ito. That's
really
it.
Know.
That's it.
I still don't know exactly what bonk is, so I'm not sure what's
bonk
going
is a Shiba Inu who hits you over the head with a hammer because you're making lewd comments about an attractive female on the internet.
Exactly.
Excuse me, I said nothing of the sort. I just talked about how great she is at jiu-jitsu, and I've been going for her since before she was in the UFC.
But Mike says that comment for the
We
Instagram.
read in between the lines, though, is what you did. You said a statement, and we read
about
what
her
you
really great single dimension.
Just because you guys' minds are in the gutter does not mean that's me.
What is
right?
What is the over under a number of days before Mike sends us some Instagram picture of Mackenzie Dern?
Yeah, she's a mother. Okay.
So 3 days?
Show some respect.
4 days?
Show some respect.
Mike, there's a category for moms.
Mark.
Goddesses.
Mark, what's your pick, man?
It's tough to be on this train with Mike, I guess, now because we're alluding to all these things, but I'm going with Dern too. I think it is really a tough fight. I think Ansarov is. I think like Stefan and maybe even Bobby, you said it too. Like I think I've been critically underrating her throughout her career, and just I think Stefan said like just thinking like she's just another name. I think, and this is a really shitty thing to do. I think her marrying Amanda Nunes put her more like, oh, that's who this fighter is, and kind of put her more on the map. But look at her record; she's done really well for herself outside of that last loss. But yeah, I'm going with Dern. I agree with Steph. Like I'm not seeing the big improvements that I would like to see to really get super excited about her and to really think like she is a prospect and she is going to be fighting for the belt soon. But she's been getting W's. Like she did have that one fumble, somewhat early on in her UFC career, but she's been able to rack some wins here, and they haven't all been super pretty or super impressive, but she's kind of consistent. I think she's won her last 3 or so. So I think she's going to win this fight. I do think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a tough fight. I think it's a tough fight to call.
Yeah, betting line's appropriate.
She's actually like looking at Nina Ansarov's record. I was about to shit on her because she's only 10-6, but before her loss to Tatiana, she had won 4 in a row. Notable wins in there was Angela Hill, although I think this is Angela Hill before Angela Hill started to get really good. And my other girl, Claudia Gadelia. We were
talking about her getting a title shot. That fight with Tatiana was probably going to be like, no one thought she was going to be Tatiana because Tatiana's a goddamn beast. But I mean, that was the conversation. When she wins, that she might get a title shot. I do appreciate the family planning, by the way, in the Nunes Ansarov household, where she's like, all right, I'm going to fight for this number one contender thing. I didn't get it. Time to have a kid. Let's do it now.
I do get it, Mike. When you see the record at 10-6 and 10-1, it's like, oh, why wouldn't everyone pick Dern? But you look at when those losses came, it's like, oh, 3 of those losses were super early in her career, and she's been more consistent without that last fight. So I think it's gonna be close. It's a tough fight to call.
She only got 1 fight in Invicta. I don't know why. I thought she had more than that. All right, yeah, this car's trash. It's in the middle of the day, Saturday. It's not good, but the main event's good. And this fight's good. I don't know how I'm going to watch these 2 fights because they're not next to each other. If they want to be pals, they'll move this to the co-main event. Because the actual co-main event. I like Arnold Allen mostly because he wore that shirt like once, right, Steph? Mm-hmm. I mean, I mostly just want that shirt.
I'm sure the uniform deal doesn't allow him anymore, right?
Yeah. By the way, we don't even have time to talk about how bad the uniform deal is. It doesn't even keep up with inflation. That's all you need to know. All right? It doesn't keep up with inflation. They're actually getting less money if you look at the value. Okay. All right, let's do stuff we like. I'm going to go first. I'm going to talk about Kong versus Godzilla and WrestleMania because I'm trying to get that SEO for the podcast. I'm trying to give Mike some help when we put the images up. Real quick, for the love of God, listen to the New Day podcast. I've converted Mark to how good this tournament is for their favorite toys. And if you're in your mid-30s, roughly, there are all our age, so it really hits when they're talking about like a Vortex, where I'm like, man, I played with the Vortex so much during the summer. Shit like that. Or I did not know what a fucking Polly Pocket is. I still don't know what that is.
Oh yeah.
Well, you had a sister. Is that why?
I've heard of Polly Pockets,
but and they mentioned on the show
ours was Mighty Max.
Yeah,
boys had Mighty Max. I never had that. Girls had Polly Pockets.
Yeah, the other ones though, where I'm just like, yeah, okay. I remember like Ninja Turtles for me, like. Yeah. Like Ninja Turtles, the van. They talk about the van, and I'm like, I had the fucking van. Like a couple
of things are like, it's all the Ninja Turtle action figures, it's all the Ghostbuster shit, it's all of the X-Men stuff. It's like these are kind of all encompassing. It's hard.
Well, the X-Men figures were a big goddamn deal. I remember the X-Men figures are a big deal. The Lego's tough. Lego's gonna be tough to beat. Lego in general is just too all encompassing.
I hate Lego. Lego couldn't in my tournament, Lego wouldn't even been on the list.
Oh, I'm kind of with you, Mike.
I love Lego.
I don't have the creativity. Like I remember, I had a friend in elementary school, Bradley, and he wanted to be an engineer. He would make the coolest shit with Legos.
Oh yeah, Bradley was a
and
bad
I'm just making
motherfucker
these,
with Lego.
I'm making these little rink-a-dink ships. Like, oh look at, I put 2 Legos across each other. Now it's an airplane. And it was like, yeah, this isn't gun for me. I don't got the imagination.
Yeah, if you grew up, in the 90s, the toys they're talking about, when they're talking about Pogs, I was like, oh yeah, I remember Pogs. You got to get your slam. There was a year in school where Pogs just ran shit, I remember. Anyway.
Yeah, but then everyone realized Pog is a gambling game.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this is bad for children to be doing.
It's a really good podcast. Check it out. I say it all the time. Kong versus Godzilla. That movie is everything you want it to be. No more, no less. Superman punch off of a skyscraper. It happens. All right? What else do you need, man? Mike has a look on his face where he's about to watch this tomorrow, is what that look on his face is. The movies in this series have not been good, many of them. Notably, the last one, I forgot what it was called, but I watched it a week ago, a week or so ago.
King of Monsters, right?
Yeah, the one...
Godzilla versus King of Monsters or something.
Whatever,
shit.
I was talking to Stefan about it, how I said this might be the dumbest movie in terms of plot I've seen in a long time. The girl from Stranger Things remains terrible in these movies. But Paperboy is in this one.
Right.
Paperboy fucking kills it, man. Paperboy's excellent. The Aussie kid from Deadpool 2 is in this. He's pretty funny. There's a bunch of actors in it where you recognize them.
I think you're forgetting the most important person that's in this movie. Coach Taylor.
Coach Taylor is in this. Coach Taylor is basically playing Coach Taylor in these movies. He's real exasperated.
That's what we need, baby. We
all
need
these
more
things.
Coach Taylor in our lives.
If you have HBO Max, man, you still got it. Watch it. It's 2 hours. You're good to go. There's 3 or 4 fight scenes. It's what you're there for. It's a lot of unnecessary destruction. A lot of people assuming some characteristics about these monsters' personalities that don't exist, I feel. Some nuance that doesn't exist in these motherfuckers. A plot that doesn't make a ton of sense, if you ask me. But it's a good time. Finally, it is WrestleMania week. And WrestleMania is still WrestleMania, the granddaddy of them all. I have a Peacock subscription now. I was watching WrestleMania 5 this weekend, where it was about how Hulk Hogan was trying to steal Macho Man's wife. Because that shit was what was happening. Macho Man had eyes, and somehow Macho Man was the bad guy. What the fuck? That was not... What the fuck, man? He was trying to steal Elizabeth.
He's the Hulkster. Just let him
He was trying to steal Elizabeth, man. Come on, man.
So, they had that storyline. They had the Matt Hardy, Lita Edge, and then they did this Bobby Lashley Rusev one. Every decade, Vince McMahon likes to do the someone stealing your real life wife story angle. That is just that is a tried and true staple of the WWE universe.
So they're doing WrestleMania at Raymond James Stadium, which is where they have the pirate ship. And they are building another pirate ship for the set based on the drone footage. Kevin Owens has promised to jump off the pirate ship. I don't know how he's going to die without dying. But he's promised. WrestleMania is 2 days again. They got 25,000 fans in a 70,000 seat stadium with pods and social distancing and masks and temperature checks. And I'm pointing these things out because I don't think the UFC is doing any of that shit a couple weeks later. Maybe temperature checks. No pods. Packed stadium. Jacksonville.
They'll be handing out moist towelettes.
Moist towelettes, and you're signing your life away when you get those tickets. Signing that waiver. WWE isn't really my bag at this point. And if it is, it's NXT mostly. I'm more invested, honestly, Steph. You and I talked about this, the Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly match later this week. That's what I'm really mostly up for this week. I don't know if whatever night that's on is the night I don't know if that's Wednesday or Thursday, but I'm watching that for sure. In terms of WrestleMania, Mike, is it bad that I'm most excited for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn with no build because they've wrestled 75 other times and every time has been good?
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, you've seen them wrestle before. You watched them. What was it? They headlined the New Japan thing 10 years ago, and you said it.
They headlined Ring of Honor 3 or 4 times. They headlined 2 NXT takeovers. I mean, this is like the feud of this generation.
I think that speaks more to just how lackluster they've been building the feuds leading up to WrestleMania. At this point, I don't care about the triple threat match between Roman, Triple H, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. don't give a shit about that in the least. It's kind of cool that Bobby Lashley has the title, but it's a little lackluster that that Drew McIntyre is just going to take it off of him again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what Rhea Ripley is facing Asuka
with no build
for the Raw belt with no
yeah,
build
they're going to
at
take
all.
the strap off Asuka again for no reason.
This is Rhea Ripley's second week on Raw. Like literally, this is her second week on Raw, and she's going to WrestleMania for a title. The only match I really care about is
Sasha.
Jesus, what are their names? Yeah, Sasha and Bianca Belair. That's the only one I care about.
I also like Big E versus Nigerian Apollo Crews. I am
good.
all as someone first generation. I enjoy how uncomfortable this is making people because all of us who are first generation can do our parents' accents perfectly. All right, we can run that shit by people no problem. And I listen to the Masked Man podcast, which I know Stefan listens to too sometimes. And Kaz, I forgot Kaz's last name. Kaz himself is Nigerian as well. And he said, I like how uncomfortable this feud makes white people. And I too like how uncomfortable this feud makes white people. Because Apollo is speaking with a Nigerian accent and people don't know what to do. They're just looking at black people like, is this okay? Is it okay he's doing this? We don't know. Is it okay? I like that Apollo's on TV with a gimmick. Because Apollo has just been the smiling black dude in WWE for about 5 years. They gave him nothing this whole time. He's just an athletic dude with no gimmick. So yeah, I like him. Big E's going to lose, I think, and move on to the main title. I think that's what we're here for. Honestly, what we're saying basically is SmackDown is way better than Raw. I don't know if people watch Raw. My understanding is it's bad.
Bobby, this is what I need to know since you have Peacock. You need to tell me the minute that they release Sammy's documentary.
Oh,
I need his full
it better be
documentary.
If there's not a full documentary, what are we even doing? Sammy is the best heel they got. Okay, Roman is. Sammy's the second best heel they got. And he's not even a heel because he's just saying real shit. Like, his Twitter account is calling out corporate advisors, corporate advertisers and stuff. Sammy had Logan Paul on SmackDown, and it wasn't the worst thing I've seen. You know, I did like Kevin Owens come out and just pushing Logan Paul, though, because he's like, I don't know. Leave me alone. I have kids. I'm not going to be seen with your dumbass. Yeah, it's WrestleMania, man. It's this is the biggest time of the year for them. And last year, you know, Pandemic WrestleMania in the Performance Center was oddly entertaining because that Buried Alive match, or what did they call it? They didn't call it Buried Alive match, but that's what it was. The
Boneyard
match. That was good. And more importantly, Bray Wyatt sent John Cena to the fucking land of wind and ghost, and we haven't seen him since. That was maybe top 5 WrestleMania match ever without being wrestling at all. So that's what I got. A whole bunch of random shit. Godzilla vs. Kong, though, man. Watch it. Mike, what do you got this week?
All right. Well, I will be checking out Godzilla vs. Kong in the next few days. I mean, I was going to watch it anyway, but Superman Punch really sold it for me. So I'm pretty sure Bobby has a good idea what I'm going to say the stuff I like this week, because in the group chat with our law school buddies, I wouldn't shut the hell up about this when I discovered it about 5 days ago. But as some of you guys may know, there's a couple of things I have a soft spot for. CW shows, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, and Glee. Basically anything with a nice musical in it, right? And I like Glee. I like that Broadway show that Deborah Messing was in, Smash. I actually really enjoyed it. I was really sad when that got canceled. And I am actually very shocked at myself that I did not discover Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist until the second season. I think our friend Phil may have mentioned that at one point, but I kind of brushed him off. And I owe him an apology because I discovered this show last week when I was just perusing the Peacock app, and I have torn through that show. Absolutely love that show. It's an extremely emotional show. It stars Jane Levy. She's some redhead. She's been in some shit like that I just can't quite place that she was in. But she just has one of those faces. She's this girl that she goes into like some magic MRI machine during an earthquake, and she comes out of the MRI machine and she's able to hear the innermost thoughts that people are having, like innermost emotional thoughts people are having, but they're in the form of song. So whatever they're thinking in the moment, she hears them in song. And it's a great concept because, it allows them to break into song and, not actually, really get in the way of the flow of whatever the actual scene is doing. So really enjoy it. The cast is really good. It's got Alex Newell in it. You're wondering who the hell is Alex Newell? If any of you watched Glee, he was unique in some of the later seasons. He plays kind of like Steph has not watched Glee, so he has no idea.
No, I watched Glee, but I don't remember who Unique is.
He was the black dude that cross-dressed.
This is when Glee had this is when Supergirl was like the female lead of Glee.
Yes, basically. That is true.
This was like 4 years.
When it got
I'm now thinking that Glee may have ran for a season or two.
It kept going,
longer
bro.
Than I thought
It got bad. It got bad
Okay.
after the main cast graduated.
There was another run with a new cast. Okay,
and then Homeboy OD'd in real life, and they had to do episodes about him. It got real uncomfortable.
Yeah. We kept going at that point.
They were. Jesus, they kept going.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
So,
I haven't seen several seasons, then never mind.
He's a really good singer on that show. And then the thing that sold this show to me is that the man, the myth, the legend, Skylar Astin is in this show. Who's Skylar Astin, you say? Oh, he's only this guy that was in this small little production called Pitch Perfect.
His name,
that's right.
His name on the Masked Man podcast when he's a guest is Pitch Mr. Perfect.
That's right. All right. He was a troublemaker, and we all know that prepare for some trouble when it comes to Skylar Astin. Really like the show. I burned through the first season in about a day and a half. I'm halfway through the second season. I have no problem admitting when I cry at things, and this is a show that amazingly did make me cry because it has some very poignant moments in the first season involving the dad, who's played by Peter Gallagher. So if you guys have time and you got the Peacock Network, I say check out Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Peter Gallagher is the dad from the OC, since Mike didn't want to explain the legend with the eyebrows.
I just know him as the dude with the eyebrows. I know of Peter Gallagher. I didn't even know what else he's been in.
Fair.
Okay. Steph.
Oh yeah, I got a couple things this week. Yet one of the things I kind of just happened upon by accident, but then I just stayed in a rabbit hole and kept watching it. I ended up catching the U.S. Olympic trials for amateur wrestling this past weekend, and that was really fun. Kind of the big stories coming out of it was I remember him in college. He was kind of a legend over in Cornell, kid Kyle Dake, who's 30 now. But his claim to fame is he knocked out Pride of American Wrestling Jordan Burroughs, who had been undefeated for 10 years. Kyle Dake has 3 losses to Jordan Burroughs. This is, as they say, 4th time is the charm. But he kind of handled Jordan.
Are we getting Jordan, Steph? That's the question. Are we getting Jordan in MMA, Steph? That's the question.
Yeah. So Jordan's not going to the Olympics because apparently they can only send one. Like there's not multiple representatives. So Jordan's been undefeated for a decade. He dabbled in MMA in the past, but Kyle Dake, I'd watched Jordan Burroughs, and he's got a unique athleticism in wrestling, but his offense was completely shut down, and Kyle Dake looked the best he ever had. Then we also had a kind of a storyline, another guy who's coming up, most recent NCAA champion, 20-year-old Gable Dan Stevenson, named Gable Dan after Dan Gable, like the all-time greatest American wrestler, and somehow this kid lived up to the billing. Fresh off of like the NCAA championship, I want to say like 3 weeks ago, he's going for the heavyweights. He defeated the number 1 seed really cleanly, really handily. I'm forgetting his name. It's like
is he the Stanford? Is he the Stanford kid?
No, I think he's one of the Arizonas.
Okay, there's the Stanford kid who won And then he had a whole no one from Stanford will wear. Well, everybody's wearing their stuff inside out for Stanford.
I think that's a smaller thing because the Stanford program is about to go.
Yeah, one of them won the tournament though, the NCAA tournament at least. Yeah,
but Gable, he 20-year-old college kid is about to go represent America, and he's considered the favorite. He did like a double handspring backflip to show his insane athleticism. All the comments on YouTube and everything were like salivating at the prospect of him joining MMA. But this kid, he put a tweet out where he tagged Vince McMahon. He said, "Get at me, pro wrestling." He wants to go the Brock Lesnar route. He wants the money in that. And this kid, he's remarkably athletic, very strong. And a name like Gable Steveson, poor Chad Gable. If that guy had a little bit more size, maybe he'd be having the career. But whatever this kid does, obviously he's about to go chase Olympic gold. And being the favorite that young has to be pretty amazing. But it seems like he's interested in pursuing pro wrestling, or if he pursues MMA, that's why it's partially interesting, I think, is if there is no direct feeder to MMA the way other sports have, where you scout the college ranks. So you kind of look at amateur wrestling, right? That's
Absolutely.
kind of the most natural transition. So if guys want to go from there, this is where you can kind of see it. So now that Jordan Burroughs' quest for like 3 straight Olympics is dashed, what's he going to do next? What is Gable going to do? But it was really compelling. It was just shocking that the guys who qualified, it was really one-sided. I went to wrestling and judo in the London Olympics. What was that, back in 2012?
Yep.
And it's actually kind of uninteresting when you get to the Olympic level because the guys are so high level, nothing happens. Like no one can get a takedown off. There's just a lot of hand fighting, a lot of collar grabbing because they're both so talented that it kind of becomes a stalemate. But, these guys in the qualifiers, all the ones who are going to represent their divisions did so in dominant fashion. So it looks like America is going to field a really, really strong wrestling team this year.
Yeah, as to what Steph was saying, that we don't really, that is, I would sometimes watch what they refer to as March Madness, which I love that they call it March Madness for the NCAA wrestling. It makes me happy. But like you look at a lot of the Bellator's ranks right now, Tyrell Fortune, Ed Ruth, Aaron Pico. It's where these dudes came from, man. That Scott Coker's been really good about that. Chasing down the young cats and slowly building them. Possibly too slow. We know the Scott Coker route here. Eventually they all face Rudy Bears, and there's only one Rudy Bears. Can't fight everybody, But yeah, Steph, you got other stuff?
My other one was my first non-anime watch recommendation in a little while, but over on HBO Max, because God bless that streaming service, it's a Cinemax show. So this show had been on my radar for a while, it took me some time to kind of give it a shot. It's kind of really topical now, and that said, it made watching some of the harsher parts of it feel a little bit gratuitous at times, but I'm a few episodes now into this show called Warrior, which is a period piece martial arts crime drama. It takes place in 1870s San Francisco, and it's about the main character we follow is Assam. I guess a lot of this show is inspired by writings of Bruce Lee, but we follow a character who is fresh off the boat from China, landing in San Francisco because he's looking for his sister. He gets indoctrinated into a gang or a tong, and there's tongs that are dividing up Chinatown. It looks like we're going to build towards the Chinese Exclusion Act, but you're dealing with Irish workers who are kind of pissed off at the Chinese immigrants brought in as cheap labor. You have all the racial tensions. And like I said, with kind of things going on in our country right now, it just feels extra prevalent. It isn't like some of that racism stuff. It feels a little bit dirtier, but it's real heavy. It's real serious. The fight choreography is amazing. One of the actors is Joe Taslim, who was in The Raid, which kind of revitalized the martial arts action scene movie. He'll be playing Sub-Zero in this upcoming Mortal Kombat movie. So just the fight scenes are very legit because the actors are very trained themselves. It's just kind of a period piece. America, like it takes place in San Francisco. That's our neck of the woods. I just find it very fascinating because we don't really get a lot of shows in this perspective. It's been really good so far. Like I said, it's full hour long. It was on Cinemax, tons of nudity, tons of blood and gore, very violent, very adult fare. But I haven't had a show to watch like this in a little while. So it kind of hits a nice niche of that kind of serious drama action in a way. While kind of being like a historic time setting in a part of the world that I'm familiar with. So I think all of you would at least find it interesting. I definitely think it's at least worth checking out. Just HBO Max apparently has got a lot more content than we would have initially suspected. Like I think some of y'all said, it's kind of what I'm watching the most now out of all these streaming services.
Yeah, I remember the day it came out. I'm the first one to get it because I signed up to try it. I remember looking at it and sending you guys screenshots like, "Yo, this sucks." Now I'm all about HBO Max. That is my go-to at this point to see what's new on HBO Max. Marcus, round it out for us, brother.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep it short. First and foremost, I gotta pour one out. The old PS4 croaked this weekend.
Oh no!
It was a long, hard fight. That fan baby was blowing hard.
What are we gonna do, bro? What's the plan now?
Oh man, I mean, that was the question. Well, the question was like, in an ideal world, I could just get a fucking PS5 and the issue would be solved. I was also thinking like, maybe I'll pick up a new one. I did find a place. I probably should have. Actually, I didn't have time to hang out stuff, but I found a repair place in San Leandro that fixes the fan. I know it's the fan. The fan has been whirly-gigging hard these last couple months. And I was playing Monster Hunter with my brother-in-law, Sean, and our friend Chris. And after 5 hours of playing, the system overheated. It kept beeping, and then it shut itself off. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I gave it some time, let it rest. I turned it back on, and me and Christine both like, I'm not hearing that fan. You hear that fan. That fan boosts up hard. So I know the fan just died out on it. So this place in San Leandro's should be able to fix it. So, hopefully they can fix it, and we'll be right as rain in a couple days here. I mean, if not, the thing was a fucking warrior. I mean, I use that. That was my streaming box. So that was a daily. That thing was on every day for, at least 4 hours. And, early in the pandemic, like it was almost running all day. On the weekends, it's on all the time. So, it earned its pay for sure. But hopefully these guys can fix it, and we can move on. I did start playing Disco Elysium, the final cut, which just came out on consoles and got re-released on PC. That actually came out in 2019. A really good, fantastic point-and-click RPG. These games live and die by its writing and also voice acting, and this game's got in spades. I haven't put a ton of time in it because my system did die, but I've been enjoying the few hours I put in. Really high quality. Definitely was deserving of all the Game of the Year nominations I got a couple years ago. Too bad Steph just walked away because I let him borrow my copy of House of X, and I started reading it, and I'm not surprised that it's fantastic. I mean, I asked for it because I am a huge fan of Jonathan Hickman, but actually getting in, I'm about a little over halfway, and I'm not surprised that it's amazing and it's fantastic and it's making the X-Men more interesting and relevant and cool in my eyes than they have been since the 90s cartoon. But it's just, this dude is just that, he's just that good. He is top level, top of the class. What he does in comics is just fantastic, and I knew it since the first thing I read of him. When I got his first graphic novel, no, I'm about halfway through. But when I read
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Did you get to the Moira stuff, the Moira chapter?
The Moira stuff
blew my mind.
Really
blew
good.
my mind.
What Hickman does so well is his stories are really complex. There's a lot of moving pieces going on, and definitely even in reading this, there's like issue 2 is just like, you're lost. You're like, what the fuck? He's jumping from year 1 of X-Men to year 10 to year 100 to year 1000. And 1 in 10, you're like, okay, I'm on board. I kind of understand this shit. But year 100 and 1000, you're like, what the fuck are these characters? I have no idea what's going on. What he does so well is that he makes these extremely complex, deep stories. And then he goes the extra mile to explain it and to make sure that you can follow along. Like, you keep reading, like, okay, everything that I didn't know what the fuck was going on before is clearly explained now. And it's so well done. And like Steph was saying, the stuff with Moira, she's this mutant that has, she can reincarnate herself, and how they kind of explain her timelines and what she's learned through each life and how she tries to correct it and how it keeps failing and what she needs to do to try to, get mutants to survive. And I think, it's well treaded territory for X-Men and them being, outcast and hunted down and killed off because they're different, So it's a storyline that we've seen many times before, but just never done this well. Just not even close. Yeah. So I mean, I'm not surprised. Like I said, ever since I read Jonathan Hickman, I don't really attach on to a lot of like comic writers. It's usually like certain characters. Like I like Squirrel Girl. I like the Avengers. That's the stuff I'll kind of pick out. But like Hickman's a guy that's like from Image, then going into Marvel, and I still haven't read a lot of his Marvel stuff. Like his Fantastic Four stuff, I haven't read. It's so well done. He's in a class of his own. And to kind of give it the chef's kiss, the art in this book is fucking fantastic. It's so vibrant and detailed and bright and beautiful. Each panel's fantastic. And Hickman has this thing. He loves to do these kind of interludes where he explains things with like weird graphs and stuff. And he's been doing that since the Nightly News. It's one of his little monikers, and it's just so interesting. He does such a fantastic job. So not only am I like super into House of X, his next, I showed Steph like his next big compilation graphic novel, Sword of X, which is like his continuation of the X-Men stuff, is coming out in a couple weeks. And it's like, I haven't finished House of X. I'm buying that because this is just so good. I want to see where it continues to go. So that stuff has been really great. The last thing I wanted to mention, I've mentioned this show a long time before, and I really just kind of wanted to ask Mike. Mike, have you ever heard of Game Center CX? I might have mentioned it or asked you about it before. This is a Japanese show.
If you have mentioned it, I don't remember it.
Yeah, so Game Center CX, it's been going on in Japan for like well over a decade. I don't know the comedian actor's full name. They call him Chief Arino. And I think if you saw the picture of it, Mike, you might recognize it because he's very popular in Japan. And basically the whole premise of the show is he just plays old Famicom, Super Famicom games. And the premise of the show is, can he beat them, right? And he has all these assistants that try to help him. It's just really fun. What kind of got me back onto it is they did dubs, or actually some dub for Kotaku. Actually got like 12 episodes, and they posted them on Kotaku, and they put them out on DVD. And we were watching them on DVD, and I was just every now and then I get back into it. I'm like, man, this guy's still doing it. Fucker still. Last Thursday he had a new episode. He has over like 300 episodes, and it's a fantastic show. I really love it. If you like, I feel like now, of any time, he could potentially get a foothold in, the American landscape, because I think, watching people on Twitch has become very popular. He's a very funny guy. He's very charismatic. And, what I find so interesting, he plays these hard ass Famicom games that are just unfair and brutal, but he has a very cool demeanor about it. Cause for me, I'd be fucking cursing and swearing and wanting to snap the cart, and he keeps a calm face about it and just has a good time. So yeah, I definitely recommend, if you kind of like, the kind of subdued Japanese humor and like checking out old retro games. Go on his wiki page and just look through the games and find a game that you like and see. The hardest part is finding the shit. It has a big fan community that has been subtitling a lot of it. But it's not the easiest thing to find. But if you find a game that you like and you can watch the episode, give that a shot. I've thoroughly been enjoying it. Twitch has a whole bunch of the seasons online. There's a bunch of stuff on YouTube. And then there is a website that has a bunch of torrents of these guys that have been subtitling it. So Game Center CX has always been a big favorite of mine that I dip into here and there. But yeah, that's all I got this week.
Right on, boys. Well, we'll be back next week. And is there a pay-per-view and the Paul thing? Or is it just the Paul thing next week?
I think it's just the Paul thing. I don't think
we're not at Masvidal Usman yet. That's not.
That's like 24th or something.
I thought there was one more, but I took it.
It looks like we got Bobby Knuckles versus Kelvin Gastelum on ESPN. That's gonna be interesting. And then after that, we got the pay-per-view with Usman and Masvidal.
Yep.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week. We're gonna talk extensively about Logan Paul versus Ben Askren. Steph's hosting the show, so either Marvin Vettori or Kevin Holland's getting buried for the first 5 minutes. Stefan might have to put together a bit of a diss track. Maybe like what's the name of that count on AEW? Who just comes out and raps against people now?
We already established we might have had some childhood on the streets. Not necessarily good rappers, though.
Exactly.
But
I don't think it's Castor Troy.
No,
I think that's Nick Cage's character.
I was going to say Castor Troy's the bad guy from Face Off. All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Thank you all for listening. Superman punch off a skyscraper. Just gonna leave you with that. I was Dr. Law. That was Kid Presentable. That was DJ Mark, and that was Lavender Gooms. Follow us on YouTube, man, and stuff we like.
Why not?
Check out our stuff we like. If you don't want to listen to the whole thing on YouTube, it's cool. It's worth, even if you listen to the podcast, you go back and watch stuff we like with Mike's. It's annotated, really, with images. I'm wondering how Mike's gonna capture this Superman punch off the skyscraper.
I mean, last week killed me.
Yeah.
Mike murdered me at the very end. I was crackling up, feet in the air, kicking. I was screaming, laughing. I mean, look at it. I hosted the goddamn thing, and I watched it again, and I was laughing it up. Mike puts the extra effort in, and it is worth the views for sure.
Yeah, and
I'm happy that it tickles you guys.
all right. Well, thank you all for listening.
Good.
Back next week. Peace out.
See ya.
Cheers.